South Africa is looking to boost the economy rapidly, particularly in the light of the lockdowns and the unemployment crisis. Last night, President Cyril Ramaphosa singled out infrastructure as one of the ways to drive economic growth. He was wrapping up the ANC National Executive Committee, lekgotla. Professor Adrian Saville from Cannon Asset Managers joins us. Now, Prof, good evening to you. I mean, we've spoken about reform many, many times. The NEC now seems to be united behind it. Infrastructure's at the centre. Are you a bit more optimistic than perhaps you've been over the last few months?
Stephen, great to be with you. There are green shoots. That much I think is evident. We're in a better place economically and I think psychologically and politically and from a policy perspective than we were 3 or 6 months ago. And all of that translates into modest silver lining or green shoots, however you'd prefer to put it. I take great courage from infrastructure building, construction and engineering as spillover sectors which have very, very powerful linkages and multipliers. What it boils down to for me, though, given the policy delivery that we have on record, is about the capacity to turn these great ideas and potentially very powerful drivers into a reality.
I mean, you're pointing in a way to problems some of the big engineering firms have had. I think 2 of them are in business rescue.
There's been an industrial hollowing out, given the dearth of activity in the building, construction, engineering sector. Really, you have to rewind to 2010, to the hosting of the World Cup, to find any evidence of impressive activity in the sector. So for the better part of 10 years, you've had almost nothing to talk about, and the large engineering construction firms have, many of them have looked outside of the country and have ventured into other economies, some with not the greatest success. And South Africa has lost skills and capacity. So there's actually a sort of 2 constraints. There's a public sector policy delivery constraint or capacity, and then there is the capacity in industry to deliver on these proposals. So it does come with a real set of challenges. That shouldn't take away from the prospect that it offers, but we need to be realistic about the challenges that we sit with.
Okay, I mean, and the other one, of course, is money. I imagine if you're going to build infrastructure, it costs money. We're seeing municipalities cutting back on infrastructure spend, capital investment, just because they have less money than they did because of the lockdown. So where does the money come from? Would we be able to borrow it from private investors? Would they fund some of it?
No, Stephen, I've been in a number of conversations recently talking around exactly this and the prospects of capital raising and funding for these projects. I think this is where private-public partnerships really, can come into their own, and if done properly, and that doesn't need any further elaboration. If done properly, this can be really powerful. South Africa has got deep capital markets, good regulation, strong legislation, and a very sophisticated financial sector. If you put that together, you have all of the attributes of the ability to fund. So I think that there's, we can hold our hope and confidence in the prospect of public-private partnership as a very robust funding avenue. It's unlikely that you're going to find the necessary funds in public coffers, given our fiscal status.
And then at the same time, I mean, everybody knows that you probably need to fix 2 big things. The one is just the way our communications infrastructure works, and I'm talking about data. I'm going to come to that. But Eskom is the other, probably the most important. We need certainty. We need more investment. I know a lot of people would say we just need a bit more liberalization, more independent power producers in the system.
There's both of those are what I would describe as low-hanging fruit. That in the case of the independent power producers, South Africa has demonstrated over the last couple of years a very, very a globally competitive, a globally respected renewable energy regulatory framework. And where those renewable energy IPPs have come into play, they take the shape of very impressive projects. So we've got all of the structure that we need. The reality, though, is that, this sounds like a made-up number, but 99% of South Africa's energy is fossil fuel fired. And this is notwithstanding the fact that we have some of the most impressive photovoltaic irradiation in the Northern Cape. So we've got an incredible capacity to generate renewables, and we have walked past that opportunity. We've got the necessary framework. So all of the ingredients are there. It's about getting past this ongoing suggestion that we're about to urgently reform, and another 6 months takes place, and there's no evidence of the urgent reform. And this is a point that you and I have spoken about on a number of occasions. Equally, in the same breath, you've got the release of spectrum, where over the course of the last 6 months under lockdown, South Africans have headed home from school and home from workplaces and have been locked out of access to data, and where they have access to data, locked into very expensive relationships with data. So the result is, school children have been denied access to streaming facilities because data simply isn't available. The last time we released spectrum was in 2005. It's an absolutely staggering calendar event that we have to wind all that way back. And South Africa has spectrum available for release. Again, it has been pointed to as an urgently needed structural reform, and we've been speaking about it for a long time. I understand that March is now the targeted release date of that spectrum.
Professor Adrian Saville from Cannon Asset Managers, really appreciate the time. Thanks very much indeed.